We're back. It's Dan Williamson, Bradley Stalder in the best ball streets on StackHunters. Welcome back, everybody. We're so excited to be talking some big risers and fallers. Of course, we've got Bill Krosky Merritt.
There you go.
Him these days. I had to is it Jacory? Is it Bill? What are the telecasts are saying it's Bill? Where are you getting Bill from, Jacory? I don't know. Dan, do you know the story behind it? Because I am at a loss.
As I understand it, he is able to outrun Mr. Hand and Mr. Sluggo, and that's why he got called Mr. Bill. No, I don't know the story behind it. He just likes Bill.
He must.
Bill the Cat, Bill Clinton, Mr. Bill, I don't know.
Bob the Builder. There we go.
Bob the Builder, yes, maybe.
Yes, well, hopefully you've built your best ball portfolios around Jacory Krosky Merritt in the late rounds, because he is rising very quickly. He's one of the hottest players, not just in the best ball streets, Dan, but in the Dynasty streets too. People are frantic about either trading for him or trading him away. I've seen in real leagues people trading second round picks to get Jacory Krosky Merritt. Some people, I have a couple shares and I was feeling pretty good about it. Just put them on the block, see if anyone's biting. But I also am if someone is thinking maybe they're middle, maybe I'll throw a third round pick at Jacory Krosky Merritt. What do I have to lose? It's a future third. Especially if it's a one quarterback league, might as well take shots, because that's about where players like JCM would go. Very role dependent players. And that's what we're looking at with Jacory Krosky Merritt. Brian Robinson on the possibly on the trade block. He didn't play in the preseason game most recently, Dan. And there's been some rumblings that Brian Robinson is upset. And he's not upset because Chris Rodriguez is doing well in camp, Dan. There's reasons why he's upset. It's because of Jacory Krosky Merritt. So, are you buying smoke?
The question is Brian Robinson actually Mr. Hand? We don't know. Nobody's ever seen them in the same room at the same time, so it's quite possible. No, it sounds like Robinson is definitely not going to be playing for the Commanders this year. The only question is he getting cut or is he getting traded? And of course, anytime teams know that, this player might be available for free very soon, that's usually what happens. So I think he's probably going to get cut, and somebody on waivers will claim him. But you never know. Some team I don't know, maybe Dallas, that has a history of throwing draft picks at players that are, they could be getting equivalent players for free.
Right.
That could happen.
It could happen, and he would be volume dependent running back 2 on that squad too. So
yeah, and if you can get a second for him in Dynasty, smash that accept button. Smash it. Because that's what you want. You've got a guaranteed profit right there. Just smash that button. I saw a great tweet earlier today by Dynasty Day Traders. The tweet says, I saw some dude on here say that he got offered a 2028 first for Jacory Krosky Merritt, but was on the fence because he needs running back depth. And then his next line was, there's still an edge to be had in this game, and there are 2 examples of that evidence in that previous sentence alone.
Yes, I don't need that 2028 first, and I also do need running back depth. That's not the game we play in.
Yeah, so yeah, that was tweet of the day for me, for sure.
Oh man, yeah, and the hype was built even more after JCM had his massive run against the most porous defense in the NFL. It's clear that the Bengals are going to be so bad. And we're talking risers and fallers here on StackHunters, but I do want to take an aside that with the Bengals defense being so bad, Trey Hendrickson officially placed on the trade block. The Bengals are going to see what they can get for him. the buys continue to be the Cincinnati Bengals offense. So I've been pounding the table. I know that everyone's taking Jamar Chase 101, and Chase Brown has cemented himself as the running back in Cincinnati you want to be targeting even in the early rounds. But I will continue to pound the table for T. Higgins. It's this turns into a T. Higgins podcast very quickly, Dan. That's the way I turn Ja'Cory Cross-Merritt into T. Higgins propaganda. Nevertheless, look, there's Chris Rodriguez and there's Austin Eckler, and you have to think that if Brian Robinson doesn't get cut, that Eckler maybe also is made available to some other team as well, given the age apex, given the lack of commitment the team needs to make to him. That's how I'm viewing it too, Dan.
Yeah, I think Eckler is probably a little bit more safe because he's the best pass catcher out of those running backs. McNichols would be all right, but Eckler I think is one of the I think they probably view him as one of those leaders in the running back room, and he's in fantastic shape and all that kind of stuff, and so they're probably going to hang on to him. That would be my gut feel, is that Eckler sticks around and B-Rob is just out the door.
Yeah, B-Rob out the door. Ja'Cory Cross-Merritt, very hot. He's so hot right now. You just see the Zoolander meme,
I mean, he's so hot. You really, if you're in a tournament, I don't think you can touch him anymore.
No.
Because you were looking at, like in the FFPC, in their regular best ball tournament, he was going around and pick 170, 175, something like that, up until about 5 days ago. And now he's going at like pick 90. And you know what? You just you're fighting against way too many teams that already have that. I'm definitely Mr. And we can talk about this, but I don't mind if a player goes up a couple of rounds or something like that, and especially not in like the rounds 3 to 6 range, which a lot of times there's a lot of players bouncing up and down in there anyways.
Sure.
But yeah, when a player goes from being a super late round guy to now you've got to spend a pick inside the 10th round to take him, you're fighting a losing battle there. It's best to just let somebody else in your league take that pick, because it's probably not going to help you out winning the overall tourney. It might help you win that particular league, but there's just not enough associated with that. You need to be gunning for the whole tournament, not just winning that league.
Right, and I think that's one of the good points you make, Dan, is if you're in a self-contained league, like you're in a 12-team best ball league just by itself, you can ignore these meteoric risers in a sense that you're just trying to get, frankly, the best players on your team at that moment. Whereas you make a great point about observing that it's not just like a couple teams have an amazing value on Ja'Cory Cross-Merritt. You have now months worth of teams that have drafted and leagues that you're competing against that have the multi-round advantage. So that's difficult. You're banking that he actually doesn't become something against the market, which closing line value indicates that there's value to be had with Ja'Cory Cross-Merritt if he becomes a meaningful piece of this Washington offense. There was I'll take an aside. I woke up this morning and I received a message from one of my news desk writers, and he said, "You know what? I just can't get behind the Ja'Cory Cross-Merritt buzz. I just can't do it. There are some takes that are being had by other guys in the news desk, and that JCM is like RB5, rookie RB5 off the board." And I'm trying to think to myself, like, okay, it's Genty, it's Omarion Hampton, you've got Caleb Johnson, you've got Travion, of course, RJ Harvey, Quinshon Judkins. Like, maybe your argument is the opportunity may not be there for Judkins right away, or maybe you aren't buying the Harvey hype. but you really have to talk a pretty strong narrative into them not working out. So I don't know if we can necessarily, I think it is a little hot takey that is like RB5, but my response to him too was like, other people can have these opinions, a hot take. They might be right. They might be wrong. It might be like wrong process. You might get the JCM at the end of the season is the RB5 for rookies, but it's so hard to predict. And for someone who's like won accuracy tournaments or, finished top 25 among experts in these competitions, like it's really tough to get these calls right about players, because it's not just whether they're talented. It's not just that it's the age apex. It's not just that they have these skill sets. There's also scheme. There's also opportunity. And right now we're recognizing that there may be a very strong opportunity for Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt in this Washington offense if Brian Robinson leaves, to get goal line work, to get first and second down work. And this offense is one that does have a lot of weapons on it. You talk about McLaurin, who may be back on a new contract, Deebo Samuel, Zach Ertz. You mentioned Austin Eckler as a pass catcher. There are pieces of this offense that make it very interesting, along with Jaden Daniels, who gets them into scoring position. So there is, I think, a short-term argument to be made for JCM, and we shouldn't just be like poo-pooing based on take lock from like 2 months ago.
Right, exactly. I mean, it doesn't matter that Bill was not invited to the combine anymore. It doesn't matter that he was, drafted in the 7th round anymore. It doesn't, none of this stuff matters, because, what matters now is what he's done in training camp and, what the team's announced intentions are, which is basically that, we're moving on from B-Rob and we're going to, JCM is right in the mix. I mean, I don't know that you can say for sure that he's going to beat out Chris Rodriguez. Chris Rodriguez could definitely end up getting the lion's share of the work here. But, I mean, I think he's shown enough that, you've got to, you got to take him seriously at this point. And what you've got to do is just, at this point now, if you're the person who's not taking him seriously, it's time to take him seriously. If you're the person who's over the moon for him, it's time to pull back a little bit, because you know what? He's still a 2-down banger. He's not going to get much, if any, work in the passing game. It's just not reasonable to expect that he's going to, all of a sudden now that he's vaulted up to the 8th, 9th round, he's not going to turn into a league winner for you. What you're hoping is that he can return value for you. So I think he's being drafted fairly close to his ceiling at this point.
Yeah, that is what's happening. I think the pendulum has swung in some cases pretty far for Bill Merritt. But if you're in confined leagues, sure, take your shots at him at ADP. That's fine.
Absolutely.
A place where Brian Robinson might land as well is the Houston Texans. Joe Mixon may be out for some time, and he's been one of the biggest fallers in ADP as of late. Mixon getting the news, getting the news that Mixon's foot is still bothering him. He's not practiced all training camp. He's not been in the preseason. He's definitely a candidate to. He's definitely a candidate to miss week 1. That's what we're expecting.
And I think also a candidate to end up on the PUP list as well. I think there's good reason to think that, if he's not available week 1 and he still hasn't been practicing as of right now, and this is a foot injury. This is not like a shoulder or something like that where he can still get his cardio in and everything else. I mean, it's going to take him a while to ramp back up, get his legs underneath him, everything else. So this is one of those situations where you're looking at it and you're going, if he's not practicing right now, the odds of a running back with a lower body injury going on the PUP are extremely high. So, that's kind of where you have to expect him. And, he's dropped in the FFPC. He was kind of going in the fifth round for the most part. And now he's going in about the 8th, sometimes 9th round, occasionally 10th round. I would take him when he drops down into the 10th round. I couldn't touch him in the 8th round though, because it's just, again, you're going to lose 4 weeks of him, at least probably, and you still don't know what kind of shape he's going to be in when he gets back, and you don't know exactly when he's going to get back. I mean, he could be out half the season or more. He could, we just don't know. So you don't want to be spending, I don't think, a pick that high on him. You want to be, kind of down around the double-digit rounds, if not within the double-digit rounds.
Yeah, that's I think the differentiation between best ball leagues and seasonal leagues also plays a part here for Joe Mixon. I think I'm more willing to take Joe Mixon in the season-long leagues, especially if you have an IR slot where you can just stash him. If you're losing that many weeks in the best ball streets, you could lose 4 weeks. You should lose 6 weeks. And yes, maybe he's back. Maybe he's back by the time you need him ramped up for the fantasy playoffs. It's possible. That's within the range of outcomes. But you need him to thread the needle. You need him to stay healthy. You need all of that. Whereas if you have him in the seasonal redraft league, you just stash him on the IR. And you know that he will get points. You'll know when to start him because the team won't put him out there for a 30% load. They're either going to give him everything or they're going to keep him out. He's that type of player. And the Nick Chubbs or the Woody Marks or whoever else, Damian Pierce behind him in the depth chart, those are not players who are going to take away Joe Mixon carries if Joe Mixon is healthy. So that's how I'm approaching Mixon. He's become a heavy fade for me during this time in the best ball streets as we're approaching the start of the season, but I don't mind taking him if he's falling in redraft.
Yep, fair enough.
All right, big riser as of late for a few reasons is Ollie Gordon. It's yes, Achane has been banged up a little bit this training camp. Alexander Mattison is out for the season with a pretty serious neck injury. If I recall correctly, he's dealing with a neck injury, costing him the season. Jalen Wright has looked bad. And Ollie Gordon, man, oh man, he could be the late round running back that you want to be tapping. He's not been flying up the board like Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt in that range. He's still very gettable, draftable. So even if he's on the riser side, Dan, I don't mind clicking around ahead just to get some more Ollie Gordon. The pathway could be very large. Achane was only handling something like 50% of the rushes last year. He is not a bell cow type of guy. And we know the rushes don't come out from Tua either. So when, right, he's not going to run he doesn't want to get hit. So it's going to be a lot of Ollie Gordon this year. And people are like sleeping on Ollie Gordon. Here, it's late round. It's Ollie Gordon or DJ Giddens. Those are guys that, late round I've been clicking a lot of. So are you also in on this riser of Ollie Gordon?
Yes, I am. And here's a quick story from a redraft, not a best ball, but earlier today, I was drafting a redraft tournament league with a friend, and we took Achane because he fell to the middle of the second. We're like, okay, we're gonna take a swing, and we're like, okay, but we got to make sure we get Ollie Gordon. So we're looking at I'm looking at the past 5 days of ADP on this site, and I'm like, looks like he's gonna probably go in like the 15th round. So maybe 16th, but we'll take him in the 14th, and we're in the middle of the 14th round. So middle of the 14th should be fine. Of course, 2 picks before us in the 14th round. There he goes. Missed him by that much.
Yeah.
But so he's a player you want to have, and I think you made the Chuba Hubbard comp on him earlier, and yes. I think that's very valid because he's a guy who really had a better season the year before he came out for the draft than his year that he came out for the draft. I think his draft stock actually kind of dropped a little bit over the course of the last year. So, and a lot of times it's just kind of like there might be external circumstances around their performance that make it, that maybe that prior year is actually the one we should be looking at. And that was kind of the case with Chuba Hubbard. And you like where he's gone. He's gone a place where there's going to be some opportunity here. Lord knows Jalen Wright is not exactly tearing it up. So, you read the tea leaves, and we got Achan with a bum calf. I mean, where have we heard that before? Christian McCaffrey. So, yeah, you definitely want to be taking chances on Ollie Gordon. And the thing is, you're talking about the 14th round versus he was going in the 19th or 20th round. There is no difference between the 14th round and the 19th or 20th round. None whatsoever. They're all late round picks. After about the 12th round, you can just throw them all in a blender. I don't care what order you take them in. I don't care if somebody rises from the 20th to the 12th. It's all the same.
Yeah, Ollie Gordon, bigger than Chuba Hubbard, has a better speed score than Chuba Hubbard, had a better college dominator rating than Chuba Hubbard, a better college target share than Chuba Hubbard. And Ollie Gordon's 21. He won't turn 22 until like January, February. Like, yeah, there's let's go, baby. Ollie Gordon, riser, and rightly so. There's lots of opportunity in Miami to go around. A big faller, though, Chris Godwin. We're expecting him to be put on the pup. Jalen McMillan also being put on the pup. And we're going to turn this very quickly into Emeka Egbuka propaganda, because that just leaves Mike Evans and Emeka Egbuka as the two players that you want catching passes out of Tampa Bay. Sure, if you want to take some late K to Otten and you need some tight end help, maybe he'll get a little bit of love. But it's Emeka Egbuka. Like, you need to be. I'm going to be in an auction draft tomorrow. I'm going to bid up on Emeka Egbuka. I want him at or above value. I'm willing to reach for him. This is Egbuka propaganda. I'm here for it. I don't care if Godwin's a faller. Give me it all. And if you really want like a 20th round guy, give me some Tez Johnson too. Like, if you want a very late round wide receiver, if you're not familiar with Tez Johnson, he's undersized. He's like 5'8", 157, something like that. He's whatever. He's 100 less than 160 pounds, but he can fly. And he's got a couple traits that are very interesting. A 50th percentile wingspan for someone who's like first percentile BMI. So he catches things that he's not supposed to catch. And just throwing it out there. Late Tez Johnson. But this is big for Emeka Egbuka, that Godwin is a big faller.
Yeah, definitely. And, as far as Godwin goes, what are you doing with him, Bradley? I mean, in the FFPC, he's dropped from basically round 6 and 7 to now he's starting to go in rounds 11 and 12.
I'd be willing to click Godwin at that point.
Yeah, I think that's probably the right thing to do. I mean, I do worry that he hasn't been running. I mean, even Brandon Ayuk has been running, right? But on the other hand, this is a player that you can, if he comes back and he's full strength, he is going to be money down the stretch. So, I'm willing to click him even in best ball. And again, I think your point of managed leagues almost a little bit easier if you can just kind of afford to keep him stashed on your bench. He's your wide receiver 5 or wide receiver 6 or something like that. Totally fine. But even in best ball, I think the juice starts to become worth the squeeze here. And actually pairing him and Egbuka is probably not the worst thing in the world, because you know what? If Godwin comes back, Egbuka is probably going to drop off later in the season. And if Godwin doesn't come back, that later pick isn't going to kill you, and your Egbuka pick is still looking good, because the problem with Egbuka is he really has risen a good bit. he's gone from basically like the 11th round to now he's been in the 7th round, and he's starting to appear a lot in the 6th and even a few times in the 5th. So yeah,
expensive.
That's expensive. To me, that's, if you don't have your Egbuka shares in the hopper by now, it's probably getting a little too late to get them, at least in a tournament.
Give me all the Egbuka. I don't care. All right. When we get back, we're going to talk some Quinshon Judkins. We're going to talk some Tyjae Spears and maybe a late round quarterback that should be on your radar. All that and more right after this.
People say, oh, there's so much free on Player Profiler. What's in the premium package? Well, it starts with the player rankings. We have the best process for ranking and projecting players, not just seasonal leagues, though. We're talking about tight end premium, specifically FFPC, best ball, specifically underdog, including their superflex rankings. And then we have IDP rankings, dynasty rankings, rookie rankings, Scott Fishbowl rankings, offensive line rankings by Dan Fornick, cornerback rankings throughout the season where you can see who's matched up with who. It's incredible. And think about who's contributed to our processes over time. Math majors, analytics powerhouses, plus you get the contributions from the real football guys. Billy Muzio, Dan Williamson, Bradley Stalder. That's why our rankings are the best. And if you want to upgrade and go all in, use promo code Underworld or your host promo code, and you get $25 off.
I love that they included Riz God in my description. That was hilarious. Matt Kelly, just a riot. Just absolutely hats off. That's great. Player rankings, check them out. Use promo code Underworld. We're here for it. We're also here for the rising of Quinshon Judkins. Before we got news that Judkins was not going to be charged with anything, I had seen him in the 180s, Dan, in different leagues, like 180 overall, 160, 170 overall. And boy, oh boy, I couldn't help but click at that point. And now the Judkins bags are packed. Like his ADP is already all the way back up to inside round 10, if not higher on some sites.
Yeah, FFPC, he's going generally in the 9th round, occasionally still falling into the 10th, sometimes jumping up into the 8th. And, it's not a terrible click there. I'm still preferring to take him when he falls below that 8th round level. I want to see him in the or 9th round level. I want to see him in the 10th round. If I see him in the 10th round or at the very end of the 9th, something like that, then I'm going to go ahead and make that click, because you know what? This is not something I do often, but this is a case where I would do it. I think Sampson and Judkins do make a pretty nice stack, even for best ball, just because you're probably going to have some back and forth between these two players. If Judkins is everything the Browns thought he was going to be, unless Sampson just totally runs away with the job, Sampson is probably going to be the early week running back for the Browns. And then at some point, if Judkins signs, gets back in, picks up the offense, all that kind of stuff, it's likely that he takes over. And, so you kind of get, and the price here is not going to keep you from, making these kind of picks, because you know what? Yeah. You could go out and take a Bashal Tutin or somebody like that instead. But, if you can lock down one team and have it between two backs that are this cheap, I think it's worth doing. If one of them was going in the 5th round, the other one was going in the 9th round or something like that, I wouldn't do it. But for a situation like this, I don't have a problem with it. What do you think about that, Bradley?
I have not been doing that in the best ball streets, but in my dynasty leagues, I was clicking because Judkins was falling to like the early 2nd round in some of these rookie drafts. I was clicking Judkins early round 2, and then Sampson in the middle or late round 2. and I knew that I was going to get volume from them. So, yeah, maybe in a managed leagues. Judkins, though, the tough thing in these tournaments is, like, I'm looking at like my ADP versus the current ADP. I have my average ADP for Judkins is 187 overall. Like, of when I drafted him.
Oh, yeah. That's, yeah. Well, then you're set up. You don't necessarily
Right.
need to go out and get yourself any more Judkins.
No, I'm all set. So maybe I tap a little bit of, Samson at this point, because his ADP is falling a little bit given the Judkins news. But there's still, I think, value to be had with Samson there.
Yeah. I'm, looking at FFPC, most of the Judkins shares, even at the worst, were still falling around like round 12, round 13, and he's still, available in round 10 a lot. So, that's a range where I don't mind making that jump. And also just to clarify, if you're doing the Judkins Sampson thing, that's assuming that you're doing some sort of a 0 RB build, because what that does is it kind of locks in some points for you off of, you're taking 2 slots, but you're going to be putting a lot of those late round slots into running back. If I've got like Bijan Robinson and Chase Brown or something like that, there's no way I'm doing anything like that.
No. Don't want to take, because your bets are that those 2 early running back picks are going to be the ones that work out for you. You're not going to bank on the Browns running back being a contributor.
Yeah, I don't need to consolidate the Browns running back possession, their production all onto my team. At that point, I want to just make a bet on one or the other. I want to either bet on Judkins or bet on Sampson, and because I've already made big bets at the running back position, that's my number 1 and my number 2. Now I'm looking for a guy who can throw in some hero weeks at my flex.
Love it. We don't love, though, is Tyjae Spears dealing with injury. He suffered it a week and a half ago in the preseason. It's Tony Pollard who was handling the majority of the work the entire season last year until Pollard got hurt. And then we saw at the end of the season, it was Tyjae Spears who put up some top 12 weeks, top 15 weeks. We were happy with what Spears did. And there was a little bit of optimism that Spears could continue that momentum into the second year in a Brian Callahan offense. And I was clicking a lot of Spears before the injury, but I've been pulling back on those clicks, Dan, ever since the injury. I've been a little bit more hesitant. Is that the right move for Tyjae Spears?
I'm not sure if it is, just because he's going in the 12th, 13th round at this point, which makes him, I think, a very cheap handcuff that we already know he's likely to have standalone value. I mean, they keep, talking about how they want him to, be the 1B to Pollard's 1A.
Sure.
We haven't really seen that come to fruition, but it's possible that it might this year. And the other thing is, if anything happens to Pollard, I think that really vaults Tyjae Spears up, and
sure.
So you've got some real contingent value there, at a price that I think is not too difficult, because there's some 12th and 13th rounders that we don't really even know what their role is going to be exactly, whereas I think we have a much better idea of what Spears' role is going to be.
Yeah, we're going to be interested in Spears hopefully taking the next step. We saw flashes of it when he was out snapping Derrick Henry just a couple years ago, and now we look at Spears as, this is what he can do if he's given the role. But Tony Pollard truthers were proven right last year, and it may be a slow start for Spears if he is still nursing an injury going into week 1.
Yeah, I think it'll definitely be a slow start for him, but that's we're probably a little bit more interested at this point in the draft in how do they finish rather than how do they start.
Sure.
One would hope that in your first 12 rounds or so, you've put together your starting lineup, or what should mostly compromise your starting lineup most weeks. And so, Spears is one of those guys that you're counting to come on when all of a sudden bye weeks are coming in and injuries start hitting your squad, all that kind of stuff. So, That's what you want to do is when you can roster some talent later on in the draft, any way that you can go about that, whether it's an Ollie Gordon type or a Tyjae Spears type, that's what you want to do.
That's what you want to do. And another big riser that we need to be keeping on our boards, Jaxson Dart has been lighting up the preseason. It's exciting. Russell Wilson, though, still the starter for Brian Dable in New York. But Dart he's throwing darts. What do you want to call it? He's looked good in the preseason. He's looked confident. This is what the coaching staff probably wanted to see. They wanted to see first-round talent showing up a little bit. And hopefully they sit him for the year, and hopefully this is a Jordan Love situation, Aaron Rodgers situation, a Patrick Mahomes situation. Not that don't hear what we're not saying. The reality is, though, we've seen time and again, if these organizations sit players for a long time, the more likely they have a chance for success. We've seen, Sam Darnold struggle right off the bat. You had Zach Wilson start right off the bat. Anthony Richardson very quickly start. These quarterbacks on at least questionable franchises who are forced to get out there very quickly, they flounder. And so I think the best case scenario for Dart and his development long term is for him to just sit behind Russ. And I know that might be frustrating for fantasy players, especially ones who want payoff year one in the best ball streets. But is Dart going to? So the Giants bye week is week 14. Are we going to see Dart before week 14?
I mean, I think it's possible. Now I'm not really interested in Dart in anything other than a superflex format. There are just better ways to spend my draft capital. But I do like the fact that, the Giants they've got a coach who really needs to win, or he might not be around next year. And I'm not sure that Russell Wilson is going to give him what he needs, especially the way the schedule shapes up in the, kind of once you get a couple weeks into the season. I mean, first off, they're at Washington, then at Dallas. Neither of those games is really easy. Then you've got Kansas City, the Chargers, at New Orleans. Okay, there's one gimme. Philadelphia, at Denver, at Philadelphia, San Francisco, and you're down to at Chicago in week 10 before you come up against another fairly winnable game, possibly. Though who knows, Chicago might be really good by then too. So you have to wonder if there's going to be some point where, if the Giants are like, 3-7 or 4-6 or something like that, and Dable is just going to say, you know what, we're going to throw Dart in there and see what we got with him, and hope like heck that at the end of the year, Wellington Mara or whoever it is that's running the Giants, whichever Mara it is at this point, it's not Wellington, but we're gonna hope that he keeps us around because he doesn't want to upset the coaching staff with his new quarterback who's performing really well, and
right.
Who we brought along, and he's now he's performing really well. And of course then Dart would need to perform really well for any of that to happen, but that might be the easiest way for Dable to keep his job. And coaches are definitely about keeping their jobs, so I think there's a good chance that he gets in there before the bye week. I think if he has not gotten in there before the bye week and the Giants are pretty much out of contention by then, I think it's almost a sure thing he'll be coming in week 15.
Oh, you think the Saints are going to be a gimme there, Dan?
Well,
they did just trade for Devon Vele for a 4th and 7th round pick, so.
Yeah, and we probably should have had an emergency podcast based solely on that fact. And
yeah, an emergency. The franchise is in trouble.
These risers and fallers. We don't need any of that. We need to figure out what's up with Devon Vele. What's the the ramifications on both Denver,
Devon Vele, or Chris Olave, wide receiver.
Yeah, right, exactly. What's the ramifications for the Saints? What's the ramifications for Denver? We got to know.
The big buzz has been for Troy Franklin. I've taken a couple late round stabs on him. You've got the Oregon connection with Bo Nix and Troy Franklin. Franklin was a deep ball specialist, but it was him and Pat Bryant that essentially made Vele expendable. So good luck, Devon Vele in New Orleans.
Yeah, I think Vele is Pat Bryant is probably the one who benefits the most from Vele, but I do think that this is going to free up a lot of snaps for Franklin as well.
Get ready to learn French, buddy.
Yeah, because they can put Franklin in the slot as well. So, I think they're just going to be looking for creative ways to get these guys on the field. They wanted to keep their best wide receivers, and there you go.
There you go. Well, those are some of the biggest risers and fallers, the hottest trending players in fantasy football for the week of August 18th. Bradley Stalder, Dan Williamson here on StackHunters. Make sure you're following Dan on X at Overhyped Sleeper with no E at the end. Bradley Stalder at FF Stalder on X. Dan, any last words for the people?
Get out there and draft. This is the best time of year because you know what? The tourists are in the streets. They're out drafting, and you want to be a part of that.
Yes, you want to be a part of that. Get in the best ball streets. Subscribe. Smash the like button. Till next time, everyone. Good luck. We'll see you in a week.